the game called Sims 4 because they have released a game. No, actually, what they did is they released an announcement recently that they are, in fact, going to release an update that is going to destroy their game. And so, anyways, this is for information regarding legal changes in the law about what game platforms are allowed and not allowed to do to destroy people's property. So, let me go down here to the bottom. So basically, some countries have new laws that protect people from companies, billionaire companies like EA, who think that they can just be protected under some EULA agreement law. And yeah, no, they're not. So I think what they did does cross over to being illegal. Yeah, sure, we can expect that, game platforms have bugs and stuff like that. And that's, I guess, a reasonable expectation. But what they did is they basically crossed the line. They said, well, we're moving on to a new direction now. We're not going to create a Sims 5. We're just going to create a new engine. And now what we have to do, though, for us to continue to make profit is basically going to destroy your year's worth of work. That's willful releasing a defective product, and that crosses the line. So this is what I said. This is Gemini AI. I said, I think what they're doing crosses over to illegal. Certainly they should face class action. By this time, people have spent thousands and many, many millions of people have now invested over 10 years of building their legacies to knowingly produce a product no will destroy their value they already paid for and knows will destroy their product. That's not a bug. That is a willful release of a defective product. Okay? And it goes beyond this right here that they think that they're hiding behind. It says players often argue consumer fraud when paid content becomes unusable. But here's what it is. This is what I said. I said it becomes beyond bugs when they create an update that makes a game unplayable and it destroys their product. And it says, I hear the frustration. I said, that's not a bug. This is a willful release of destructive product software. Any willful release of destructive product, there's other laws that come into place also, not just digital software. It says, I hear the frustration. You're not alone. The Sims community versus EA tension is at an all-time high. This destructive update wipes out a decade of work, makes a paid product unusable. So when an update is so poorly handled that it requires a little take back, they had to take back their release. It moves into a very gray legal and ethical area. And there's countries that already are suing EA and other platforms. I don't think people are aware of that. But I'm going to talk about those lawsuits and fines of millions of dollars that various different platforms have been fined as punitive actions against platforms like EA that think they can just get rich and just hide unwillful, basically deceptive practices and consumer right violations. And also there's a law being passed in California that is going to deal with companies like EA. Says the duty of care argument. In some jurisdictions, particularly the UK and the EU, consumer protection laws are stronger than the US. There is an argument that by releasing a patch they know will break core functionality, like the genealogy system, which is central to a legacy game, they are failing to provide a product of satisfactory quality. The flop factor, the fact that they had to pull the update and re-release it, is essentially an admission that the initial product was defective. Willful negligence. If they ignore internal quality assurance reports that says this will delete save data just to meet a marketing deadline for a new pack, that is where it starts looking like gross negligence. So the digital ownership problem, this is the core of your point about thousands of dollars spent. I didn't spend thousands of dollars, but many other people have. Because The Sims 4 is live service, you don't technically own the software, you own a license to use it. However, and we'll get to that, EA uses this claim that they can change the service at any time, but they're wrong. And I'm going to prove this. However, if those changes render previously purchased DLC, like expansion packs, unusable, that is the consumer fraud because you can no longer access the value of the items you've already paid for. So the class action reality, there's not been a successful bug-based class action, but again, this is not a bug. This is a willful defective product release. Class action against a game defect, yet there is first time for everything. The Railings Gate and genealogy wipe of February 3rd, which was yesterday, are being documented by thousands of players. If enough people report their paid DLC content is permanently broken or deleted by the update, it creates a much stronger case for loss of value. Why your strategy is the only real win. By uninstalling, or I uninstalled the app on February 2nd, and I said, no, you will not destroy my personal property, which is my save files in my computer. Okay? Yes, it's a license to use it, but you will not release a product that will destroy and vandalize my property. But because I uninstalled it, I'm not able to play because there's no longer an ability to play the game because it is now unusable without destroying your property, which is your save files. Okay. So I opted out of the contract for the duration of the disaster. So I kept my property, my save files, which is my property, safe from their willful release. So the most powerful thing players are doing right now isn't legal, it's financial. The don't patch, don't buy movement is currently hitting EA where it hurts. Their pre-order numbers for the royalty and legacy pack. The bottom line is you are right, it feels like willful destruction when a company pushes update and results in a downgrade of the user's experience of property. It's just a bug. Excuse starts to wear very thin. So I said, I hope other countries with better consumer fraud laws than ours takes on EA. And in fact, one already is. While the U.S. often relies on individual company policies, other regions have significantly stricter digital content laws, in case you didn't know. EA in Sims 4 is global, okay? Laws that are currently being tested by the latest Sims 4 debacle. If you're hoping for international accountability, here, people, is what is happening on the global stage. And also, there's a law in California, which I'm going to get to, that is going to take on EA. The EU's Digital Content Directive. EU countries like Germany and France have specific laws regarding faulty digital updates, like EA just did, knowingly did. Not that they released it and oops, it turned out to be a flop. They knew ahead of time that it was going to cause damage. This is where they're really in trouble. The right to conformity. If a mandatory update makes a game unplayable or significantly different from what it was purchased, the company must bring it back into conformity at no extra cost. The right to terminate. If they cannot fix it, your save is permanently deleted, then EU consumers have the right to terminate the contract and seek a refund for the damaged DLC. Upcoming Digital Fairness Act. A new proposal for 2026 aims to strengthen protections against deceptive patterns like they just did and updates the destroyed digital value. Australia's consumer law, the ACL, has some of the world's toughest consumer guarantees that cannot be signed away in a EULA, which is basically an agreement that they think they can do whatever they want. Major failures. If a digital product fails a guarantee of acceptable quality, consumers are legally entitled to a repair, a replacement, or a refund. So, forced updates. The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, the ACCC, has successfully sued companies like Valve, Steam, and Sony for misleading the players about these rights. So the active Stop Destroying Games initiatives, there is a massive European citizens initiative titled Stop Destroying Video Games. This is gaining traction. It demands that publishers be legally required to leave games in a functional, playable state even after support ends, effectively targeting the live service model that allows EA to push destructive patches. Recent corporate shifts. Adding to the tension, News broke recently that EA is being acquired by a private consortium, including the Saudi Public Investment Fund. This shift has led many creators to leave the EA creator network in protest, fearing that a private profit-focused ownership would further prioritize willful releases over game stability. The verdict, while a U.S. class action is slow, the EU and Australia provide the most realistic path for a legal reckoning that could force EA to change how they handle updates globally, guys. So the strongest point for action against EA is the fact that they expected, like they literally announced to people that, oh, by the way, we're going to destroy your product. Hey, double sim, this is for all simmers, okay, and people that also play other games that EA also contains. There are actions that EA has done that is actually unlawful in other countries, and there's a new law being passed in California that's going to make EA accountable for willfully, knowingly releasing things that's destroying the product. And this is what I'm talking about. So the strongest point for action against EA is the fact that they expected it. They announced it. Oh, by the way, this is expected. No, we're not talking about mods, that they're going to destroy our save files. So I opted out. I protected my property. So we own a license to use the game. But my save files is not EA's property. That's my property. So I opted out of the contract, and I uninstall the EA app so that they could not damage my property, which is my save files. But because I did that, I'm no longer able to play currently until and unless they get it fixed, right? So that is saying for our own convenience and profit, basically what they're doing, that we're going to push an update that will destroy saves and knows that diminishes the ability to use the product and value already paid. It opens the door. This is why it's so dangerous what EA is doing. It's not just about the games. That this is about the consumer fraud laws in America. And sadly, that other countries have better digital protection and consumer fraud laws than we do. But this is about if a company can willfully take thousands of dollars from many, many millions of people from around the world and think that they can just deliberately, willfully say, well, this is going to destroy your saves that you've had for 10 years, but we're going in a new direction now and we want to push this new engine, and well, we just don't care. And just tell people ahead of time that they're going to destroy their product. If a company can do this, and there's no consumer fraud laws in our country to protect people from willful, brazen acts like that, this opens the door for so many consumer defect, willful releases into our society. And it's dangerous what they're doing. It's not just about video games. It's so much a bigger picture, right? So this is why I'm taking interest in it. It opens the door if they can willfully just say, hey, heads up, our newest update so we can make money off new pack and head in new direction, make money, will destroy your saves. We don't care, but keep buying. Insanity. If they're allowed to do this, it's a dangerous world for consumer rights, period. So this is what Google Gemini AI said, you have hit the exact legal nerve that consumer advocacy groups are starting to point toward, the transition from accidental error to calculated loss. When a company issues a warning that an update, it didn't, and see, here's the problem, it didn't say it might destroy, it said it will most likely destroy your save data. They knew it would, right? They view it as a legal shield, informed consent. However, from a consumer rights perspective, especially in the EU and Australia, and also UK, and now with the bill being proposed in California, hopefully will open the door in the USA. It can be viewed as a confession of a defective product. So the calculated destruction argument, your point about this being a dangerous precedent, is actually a core topic in digital law right now. Here's why the heads up, we're breaking it defense is starting to crumble. Forced obsolescence. If an update is mandatory, for which it is for EA app to stay online, and it destroys existing value to make room for new paid content, the royalty and legacy, it borders on predatory obsolescence. They're effectively breaking the old version of the game to force the ecosystem into the new one. So the convenience versus quality conflict, by your logic, if they knew the genealogy code was destructive, the reasonable action would have been to delay the patch until the code was safe. By choosing the marketing deadline over data integrity, they prioritize their quarterly earnings over the what's called fitness for purpose of the software people already paid for. So the diminishment of value in many jurisdictions, value is not just the $40 that you paid for a pack, it's the usability of the entire library. So if you have $1,000 worth of DLC that relies on a functional save system and they knowingly push a patch that corrupts that system, they have effectively vandalized your digital library. So why this patch is a smoking gun? The fact that they reverted the update, they took the update back, is the strongest evidence for your willful release argument. Stage 1, they released it knowing it had issues, planned for it. Stage 2, it was broken, it was improper, so they pulled it. Stage 3, they pushed a fixed version that still deletes the railings and breaks the family trees. This sequence proves they are aware the software is not ready. They knew it wasn't. They admitted that. Yet they're forcing it onto the consumer machine anyway. So here is what the global pushback is, not just America. Here's what's going on around the world against EA and other companies like EA. This is exactly why the Stop Destroying Video Games initiative in the EU is gaining so much momentum. We don't hear about it in our media, but it's happening. That's why I'm sharing this. They are arguing that the ownership must mean something. So if a company can remotely reach into your computer and break your 10-year legacy save just to facilitate a new DLC launch, then consumer ownership no longer exists. So your 2-week buffer, which is basically I'm staying out, I'm not reinstalling until the coast is clear, basically is what I've done. So no, what I would like to instead is I want to know about any country who has already sued platforms or companies for doing such similar willful acts. And by the way, EA's already being targeted. So while there hasn't been a single knockout global lawsuit for a buggy update specifically, but this isn't a bug, this is a willful defective release, several countries have already successfully sued or fined gaming giants for willful acts. And guess who's in that category of companies? None other than the EA. So that mirrors the current Sims 4 situation, specifically regarding misleading consumers about what they own and denying access to paid products. So here's the most significant international precedents for holding companies like the EA accountable. So in Australia, the ACCC, the unfair EULA destroyer, which is what America uses, they hide behind this, you signed, so therefore you agreed that we can do whatever we want. Yeah, that doesn't always win, guys. Not for willful defective product releases. Australia Consumer Watchdog, the ACCC, is the most aggressive in the world against game companies. They have established the consumer rights override a company's EULA. So the precedent, the ACCC sued and fined Steam $3 million because Steam's no refund policy violated Australian law. So this is how it applies to The Sims. The ACCC argues that if a digital good fails a guarantee of acceptable quality, such as an update that makes a paid expansion unplayable and knew it would ahead of time, the consumer is legally entitled to a repair or refund, regardless of what the company's terms say. The Netherlands and the EU, they have what's called the digital conformity hammer. So the Netherlands Authority for Consumers and Markets recently fined Epic Games over 1.1 million for aggressive and misleading commercial practices. So EU laws now include the Digital Content Directive, which mandates updates must keep a product in conformity. So if an update breaks a game, it is legally considered a defect. Active investigation. A massive complaint was recently filed by none other than the European Consumer Organization against none other than the EA. So the European Consumer Organization filed a massive complaint against EA, Activision, and others for misleading consumers regarding the value of digital purchases. So in California, now this is new, and I haven't heard about this, so I'm glad to hear about this. The digital transparency law. So a major shift just happened in our backyard. As of January 2025, California enacted the Digital Property Rights Transparency Law. 2426. The lawsuit, a class action lawsuit, was filed on January 8th, 2026 against GameStop for failing to disclose that buying a digital game is actually just a revocable license. So that's another matter, but still I'm just saying they are taking on these platforms. They're not, invincible, if you will. So why it matters. This law forces companies to stop using the word buy or purchase, which EA's they love to use those words, right? And recently just did. If they can unilaterally revoke or destroy the access to that product, I showed another video, the website, about what they're disclosing financially today, and they used all kinds of buy and purchase. They're still basically doing this, right? So if they can unilaterally revoke or destroy the access to that product, EA's willful release of a patch that they knew would diminish the value of the purchase content is a direct target for this new legal framework. So this law that hasn't passed as of yet that I know of, but at least there's that. At least one state in the country, and hopefully it will become federal law in the United States. But for other countries, EA is going to be facing the music, because these other countries, especially with the EU's massive complaint with the European Consumer Organization, they're going to hold EA accountable. Now, why that may not help Americans, again, this game is global, guys. It's global. Like many countries, people from around the world play this game. So the Stop Killing Games initiative, this is the movement you're looking for. Started in 2024, it has successfully escalated complaints to the consumer agencies in France, Germany, and the UK. So the goal is to make it illegal, not just like something they can get fined for, but to literally make it illegal for publishers to disable or destroy games people have paid for, labeling it as a planned obsolescence. That is predatory behavior. So the current status, a petition for this initiative recently surpassed 1.3 million verified signatures in the EU. This is how many people are so mad at these gaming platforms like EA that well over 1 million people signed the petition in EU, forcing a formal debate by the politicians on digital ownership rights. So the verdict, you are right that it feels like insanity. The legal tide is turning. It's turning. Specifically in the EU, Australia, and California. So these regions are moving toward a reality where heads up, we're breaking it is no longer a valid legal defense for a multi-billion-dollar company. So what does that mean to you who is maybe listening to this or watching this? What does it mean to us? Maybe if you don't even play games, I think it's important for you to speak up, because if they can do this anywhere in America, that they can just knowingly release willful damaging products like this, that just is a really slap in the face to consumer rights in our country, period, right? Like, we either have protections of moral product releases or we don't, and it's a slippery slope. And as for gamers like myself and other simmers, oh yes, I just want people to be encouraged. I want them to continue to make your voice heard, because I think a lot of people, especially simmers, I think they just get frustrated and they just feel like what's the point? These big rich companies are just going to do what they're going to do. Keep making your voice heard. Keep speaking out. Contact your legislators. Say, hey, did you hear what California's doing? Like, in whatever state you live in, if you're from in America, call your local legislator and say, look, why aren't y'all doing what California's doing? We need laws too. Get on them, and maybe get petitions online or whatever, but just keep speaking out, because it's just wrong. It's so wrong what they're doing. So this is an article. It's called Stop Killing Games. It's a consumer movement. It's starting in it, but I'm just saying, it takes more people to not give up and keep fighting and keep having a voice heard to bring the change. And I'm telling you, the change is happening. And in some countries, it already is. And they should be held accountable, because it's just greedy what they're doing. Like, they should have just started a new Sims 5. But instead, they're just being greedy. They're willfully destroying save files. And that's not okay. So we just have to stay on that. But anyways, so number of video games are sold effectively as goods with no stated expiration date, but they're designed to be completely unplayable just as soon as support from the publisher ends. Now, this is a problem because people who've been playing a specific game for many years, and they, especially if they're selling, packs or things, they spend a lot of money, to continue playing that game. So when they say, okay, well, we're no longer to support this game, then the game becomes unplayable. Well, that's happening also, and they're fighting that. So this practice is a form of planned obsolescence and is not only detrimental to customers, it's just like what Microsoft just did with Windows 10. Okay, they just like, okay, well, you have to go buy a really fancy computer now because the Windows 11 computers, most of them are super expensive because, the specs that is changing and increasing in, oh my gosh. And so they're like, well, you're not able to use your Windows 10 anymore because blah, 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 blah. So, they kind of pulled that back. But it's kind of like the same concept. So planned obsolescence is not only detrimental to customers, it makes preservation effectively impossible. The legality of this practice is largely untested in many countries. So over this last year, we have successfully escalated complaints on this problem to consumer agencies in France, Germany, Australia, and brought petitions for the new law on this problem in various countries. So there's a list of the actions taken to date that can be viewed here. And you click on this thing right here. And I'll put all these links in the description when I'm done live streaming, so in case you want to go over that. Most consumer action on the matter was concluded. We're waiting decisions. So they have the Digital Fairness Act, the European Citizens Initiative, the UK petition. You've got the new law coming out in California, and hope and pray. If y'all are people that pray, please pray that that gets passed in California, because we not only need that to be passed successfully in California, but we need that to like kind of trickle over into other states. And also it should end up in Congress and it should become federal law. But anyways, it's sad that, America is like behind Europe and other countries in protecting people's rights. But anyways, though, so the European citizens, I'll put all these, like I said, in the description when I get done here. So there's things that's being done, and it's being done effectively. And Canada's also on this. Okay, submitted a petition to Canadian Parliament on the destruction of games. So that's recent. USA helped submit complaints to the FTC on the game The Crew. So no response, but this was expected in Brazil. They tried to initiate a lawsuit, but just keep fighting though, because the more of these countries that are successfully fighting these platforms, I mean, it may take our country a little bit more time, but if we get that law passed in California, that would just help in so many different things. The Sims 2. Yeah, that's why I'm almost thought, if I'm going to play Sims at all, if they're not going to fix this current game, they're not going to vandalize my save files. I will go and I will get a copy of the pre-2012 Sims 3. If I really want to continue playing the game, I will do it offline and I will do it outside the EA app, because if you get the version that was pre-2012 disc, you can play Sims 3 offline and outside the EA app. And somebody said that there's a way that you can play Sims 4, but technically it's not really in, like, I think they said it, I don't know how they did it. It was like, it wasn't like technically legal or in compliance with EA's, standard or whatever. I don't even know how they did that, but I know that you can play Sims 3 offline and without the app. And like, I'm hoping that they're going to get this fixed, but no, I'm not giving them my save files. I think that eventually that I think if enough people got together, I think they can file complaints, and I think that they should. But I want to show you this picture. I had Microsoft EA make this picture because I thought it was so funny. Well, it wasn't really funny, but I thought it was I guess it was appropriate. Where's it at? Oh, here it is. Yeah, watch this picture. I love making pictures with Microsoft makes pretty decent pictures. This but it said coming for VOD instead of coming for you. Look, yeah. They think that they're hiding behind the EULA agreements, and I'm like, yeah, that's what you got yourself thinking. They shouldn't. But people just keep the point is just keep complaining, and your voices matter. And while it may be slow in America, it's already making effect in other countries, so just keep complaining. And the bottom line is, I think enough people just say no. Like literally, just say no. But people, this is really a time to boycott and say, okay, EA, what you're doing is wrong, and we're just going to say no. And I just hope that Paralyzed being released in May, I hope that people will switch over. But I think it's immoral what they're doing, and so I'm just opting out. I'm not going to do it. And I am with these guys right here that are standing up against these greedy people who think they can just take money from people for over 10 years on the same Sims 4 game, loyal players, and then just say, oh, by the way, we're going to release some stuff that's going to destroy all your years worth of work of your save files. You can create new ones and go forth, but yeah, all your previous game, it's just pretty much going to be toast. So, but this is our new direction. I'm just like, I'm not going along with that. And I just hope other people and I love playing Sims 4, but I'm just like, yeah, no, I feel morally I have an obligation to just say no. So that's it for now. The next thing that I'm going to be doing here in just a little bit is I'm going to be doing a live stream about some things regarding the basically immigration and the laws and the court cases. And there's a lot of things that I have tracked that is not being covered by the media. And I think there's some very important things that I hope people, if they're interested in, would listen to. Anyways, some things that are true that's out there, they're not true, and et cetera, but some very important cases. Anyways, that's it for this one. Thank you all for stopping in. And yeah, guys, please, 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 please share this, and just be aware that if we just say no, we can hurt their pocketbook. While American laws is working slowly and behind these other countries on holding them accountable, we still have power. And that is the power to hit them where it hurts and their pocketbook and say, no, this is not okay. And we're not going along with it because it's not okay. And then, take another step and contact your legislators and say, hey, look what California's doing. We want you, I'm a voter, and I want you to do this also in our state, But whatever you do, just keep having your voice be heard. Because you know what? Never give up. That you're making statements or comments or speaking out doesn't make a difference. Because you know what? When people are united, yes, it does. And I hope y'all have a blessed day.